Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to week 3, day 12 of Celebrate 21. So excited to have you here today. We have a fantastic program for you. My name is Lisa Lozano, and I am one of the productivity coaches with Century 21 University. As we get started, just a few reminders. Make sure that you keep yourself muted, as well as the video off. And with all of Matt's great ideas and thoughts and suggestions coming through today, some of those ones, if you're not sure if they follow your local ordinances and guidelines, please make sure to check with your leadership team. But we are so excited to have with us today Matt Weibel with the Matt Weibel team with Century 21 New Millennium, and his conversation is going to be all around expanding and maximizing your sphere. Now, we all know we should be focusing on our sphere of influence when we look at the statistics and our conversion rates and the biggest opportunity for our business. But for some reason, we want to focus some of our efforts sometimes on reaching out, making all those cold calls and reaching out and hoping that strangers are going to bring our business. So looking forward to hearing everything that Matt has to share with us today, his best practices that have led to his success. So Matt, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over from here. Would love for you to share a little bit about you and your company as you go into the presentation, but I will be monitoring the chat box, everyone. Any questions you have, please put those in the chat box and we will make sure to have those answered for you today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday. I'm very excited to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Looks good, Matt.
Excellent. All right. So as Lisa introduced me, my name is Matt Weibel. I am the team leader and president of the Matt Weibel team of Century 21 New Millennium. We're located in Severna Park, Maryland. And as I mentioned, the excitement of my team and I to have the opportunity to share this with everybody it's an honor. But obviously, as with everybody else here, I'd much rather be doing it with you in person in Vegas. But luckily, the technology of Zoom will allow us to kind of test pilot this new class. And hopefully, I'll be able to teach it again next year in Vegas if you guys like it. So let's dive right in. I'm all about building a community. I've spent the last 12 years of my career doing so. And I personally believe that growing an organic SOI is the only way you can have a lifelong sustainable business in real estate. So before we get into the program, I wanted to start off our meeting here today the same way that I start off every meeting with my team. And that is, tell me something good. And tell me something good is we kick off almost every one of our meetings with everyone telling me lately in our group chat about something good that's going on in their life. So if there's something going on that you'd like to share with the group, please do so in the chat. All right, pull this up here. Oh. There we go. We got some people chiming in. All right, excellent. So who am I? As I mentioned, my name is Matt Weibel, but that's just part of the story. I am a father of 3 awesome children, my 2 boys here, and my daughter, Ellie, who actually passed away at 2 months. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's my wife, Ashley, of 12 years as well. So real estate career, 12 years, 12 years of marriage. And I'm blessed to have a partner who sees the vision of the real estate career as much as I do, and is just an amazing mom and just an amazing person altogether. On the right there, you'll see my dad and my granddad, and then my son, Luke, from a couple years ago. And this is our 4th-generation shot of those who are living. So Pop turns 98 next month, and he was a realtor. So I love to tell everybody I'm actually a 4th-generation realtor. My great-granddad started a brokerage 70 years ago this year. And then his son, Ray Grant, pictured there, came in and helped him run it all the way until 1992 when he sold and retired. So what's pretty cool is you get to see a little bit more about me here. I have taken over the family business, and I also see my team as a family. And that family has grown to now 25 licensed teammates. In 2020, we were the #1 Century 21 team in Maryland, number 11 in the US, and number 14 in the world. I could be prouder of this team. And our team comes from all over the world prior to coming to Starling Park, Maryland. So a little bit more on that as well. But who's the Matt Weibel team? We fancy ourselves as a group of individuals who like to have fun. So I wanted to kick off, in addition to something good, with a little contest. And the contest is whoever's watching this today, who most recently celebrated a birthday. So if you guys could type in your birthday, if you think you had the closest birthday to today, March 16th. We'll monitor that as well. Oh my gosh, Christine Farley just said she had a birthday yesterday. So happy belated. Unless someone's got a birthday today, I think it's going to be tough to beat. So we'll come back to that as well. So who's the Matt Weibel team? Here's our handsome squad. And something that I like to point out to every person who meets us for the first time, whether it's a friend or a client or you guys virtually here today, we're a quintilingual group. So in addition to English, I have native speaking Spanish, Korean, and French teammates. And then our fifth language is American Sign Language. And although Joe Smith is not deaf himself, he did grow up in a deaf household and learned to sign actually before he learned to speak English. So he is, in my humble opinion, the best sign language interpreter in the state. In addition to doing about $18 million a year in sales, he also runs with his wife one of the largest sign language interpreting businesses in Maryland. So it's been a very fun growth of our team as we've added all these languages. More on that as well. But our tagline is that we are big enough to matter and small enough to care. So as our teams continued to grow, one thing that's remained a constant is everyone who joins has to have their own sphere of influence. We are a team that last year did 92 million sold and about 213 units. Out of that business, I believe 195 and somewhere around, I was doing the math last night, 82 to 85 million of that business was pure organic sphere of influence. So when I first came to Century 21 2 years ago, and we're meeting with leadership from Century 21 New Millennium, they were like blown away that our team was doing $70 million a year on SOI business. We didn't have any relocation. We didn't really get any outside referrals. It was all stuff that we were generating ourselves. So when I mentioned this to Brian Ellington back in the fall, he said, "Hey, Matt, can you teach a class on how you did it and how you built this SOI?" And I said, "You know, it's funny, Brian, I've been thinking about putting together a course like this just to teach my team. But sure." So you guys are humbly my guinea pigs today. This is the first time I'm teaching this course, but the content that you'll see is stuff that I've been using literally every day for the past 12 years. And if anybody in the chat speaks any of these languages, please share. I'd love to introduce you to my teammates. We're always looking for bilingual or trilingual agents throughout the country because of referrals. So a network never sleeps. I wanted to share and kind of kick off our meeting today with an excerpt from my favorite networking book, which is Harvey Mackay's Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And as he states there, it's the only networking book you'll ever need. So if you get anything out of this today, please definitely give this book a listen. It's a little dated with some of the technology he states because it was written 20 years ago. But the overall processes and thoughts that he puts in as actual action items of how to reach out to your sphere are literally second to none. So here we go. A networking never sleeps. Dig your well before you're thirsty. This is from Harvey, and it's a direct quote. Our foursome had finished the usual Saturday morning round of golf. We were in the clubhouse doing the postmortem when Jerry said, "Last night I got a call. It was 2 in the morning. I won't tell you who it was because one of you might know him. He was semi-hysterical. His accountant had called him that afternoon and told him that he was broke. His company couldn't make the payroll, and if he didn't retrieve the checks he'd written, there was a good chance he'd go to jail. The guy needed $20,000. The strange thing is, I hadn't talked to him in over 10 years. He said the only reason he called me was that I used to be a close friend and that I knew he was a trustworthy guy. Well, I offered to lend him a few $1,000s, but I didn't give him what he needed, even though I could have. It got me thinking, though, Jerry added, what if it had been me? How many people could I realistically count on to bust a gut to help me out if I'd called them at 2 a.m.? How many, Jerry? 2, maybe 3, he responded. So we went around the table. The answers were about the same until they got to me. 50, I said. Come on, Harvey, that's BS. No, it isn't, I said. I've been ready to make that kind of call that Jerry got for nearly 40 years. I never had to make it. I made 50 others like it instead. I've made 2 a.m. phone calls to find the absolutely best doctor in town in a family medical crisis. I've made them to get a valued employee out of a blackmail situation and to stop a customer not only from dumping me, but to keep him from bad mouthing me so totally that my business would have been ruined forever. I know I've been to that wall at least 50 times, and each one of those 50 times, I was able to find the right person to get me the help I needed. Ever since I was dumb enough to buy a bankrupt envelope company when I was just a kid, I've been building a network of people who I could count on and who count on me in case one of those 2 a.m.ers came around. I know I wouldn't have survived if I hadn't, and I'm proud that a lot of other people who made those kind of calls to me wouldn't have made it either if I hadn't been part of their networks. I feel sorry for the guy who called Jerry because it didn't have to come down that way. But the guy didn't stay in touch. He didn't prepare. He not only didn't dig his well before he got thirsty, he waited until he was dying of thirst before he even started clawing the ground. How many names do you think he called before he called Jerry? A guy who he hadn't even talked to in 10 years. 5 or 10 other guys? Probably even more. And with each call, the odds grew longer against connecting because he was getting farther and farther away from his real network. Remember the Broadway show and movie, 6 Degrees of Separation? The title refers to the fact that there's a chain of no more than 6 people that links every person on this planet to every other person. What if I want to meet the president of GE and sell him some envelopes? Well, if I know somebody who knows somebody and so on, 6 deep, I could be standing there in Jack Welch's office pitching number 10s before we play our next round. That's a hell of a network, and we're all capable of building one just like it. But try to reach over the 5 people between you and Welch directly, it can't be done. That's Jerry's non-pals way, a non-network, a rope of sand. If you dig your well and actually have a network, you're never going to be out of that 6th dimension all by your lonesome, where all you get is busy signals and wrong numbers. Jerry, I just want you to know that if I ever get a late nighter from you someday, the 20 grand will be in your account within 24 hours. By the way, what have you got for collateral? What have I got for collateral? Jerry said. I remember catching one of those 2 a.m.ers from you, Harvey. I've been there for you. You're right, I said, and that's all the collateral you need. Jerry and I have been around forever. If we can keep our network going year after year, it isn't too late for you. If you like that excerpt, I definitely suggest getting this book. It is on Audible. And my moral of this story, and I share this with my team pretty much every year, is maybe it's not a $10,000 request of our SOI, but couldn't the parallel be someone trusting us with their own or their friends and families $400,000 sale? It relates to the same $10,000, just in our industry, it's a commission check. How often do we take for granted that we are earning a commission and it's just part of the process? One of the things I like to do the start of every year is go back, listen to this book, take it down to ground level and say, how can I be there for my core sphere? So I want everybody to think as we get started, how many people do you have in your $10,000 club? I call these people our core sphere, and I'll get to more on that in just a little bit. So group exercise, poll question number 1. In the chat box, please type in the number of people currently in your SOI. See 300, 50, 300. 158, that's precise. I like that. It's all 10, 60, 658. This is great. Well, keep sharing, and I will come back to some of your answers here just in a second. So what does an SOI mean to me? So when I first started in this business, and luckily enough, read this book in about year 2, I really started thinking about it's every single person who could know you, should know you, already knows you. And I got the best advice from my first mentor in the business when I got hired. The day I literally signed up to take the agency course, he said to me, Matt, every human being you meet from this day forward of you getting your license is a potential client. And I said, really? I said, even other realtors? And he said, even other realtors. There's a network of referrals out there that's infinitely long. And when people are saying, hey, Matt, I know you love teaching classes to other realtors. Are you ever nervous about teaching competition your secrets? Absolutely not. And certainly not for Century 21. I find it to be an honor that I get to do this. And I hope that I can help every single one of you maybe pick up 1 or 2 core SOI people. And then next year when we're in Vegas, come tell me about it. And maybe we'll get a drink afterwards. All right. So let's start off with my 2 visions of what an SOI is. The first one that I went off of is a bullseye model. So as we work our way from inside out, the first one is the core sphere, AKA bird dogs. I will define this a little bit. I'll define this a little bit more, but a bird dog is that person who literally goes out and finds you deals. They are like my favorite people. And it's amazing how the people who you might think right now are your bird dogs actually aren't. And what I want you to think about while we're going through this today is write down where the last 10 transactions that you did came from. And when I started doing this about 6 or 7 years ago, I was blown away that like a third of my business was coming from 3 people. They are still to this day my 3 biggest supporters of my personal business. And then I've also taught each of my teammates to look for bird dogs in their own books of business, because those are the people that you need to be taking care of the most. All right. Number 2, friends and family, AKA the wedding list. Who did you invite to the wedding? Not married yet? How about your graduation party? If you are getting married one day, who would you invite? How big is your wedding? I ask every person who joins our team that question. How big was your wedding? How many people would you invite if you didn't have a budget? And try to get an idea of all those numbers there that everybody just posted. 300, 400, 500, 86. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer, but I can tell pretty quickly based off of somebody's social media presence and how many likes and clicks they're getting from local people if they have a big sphere of influence that will immediately buy into their business. So if you have bird dogs and this friends and family, aka the wedding list, already in your pocket, as long as you don't mess it up, you'll immediately have business from those 2 groups, as long as it's big enough and local enough to support you. All right, the third rung, acquaintances and family friends, AKA the wedding cut list. Who are those people that just missed the cut? And those are the people who I consider like the family, friends, or acquaintances. They definitely know your name. They definitely know who you are. And if they received a postcard from you, they might not be ready to buy into your business right away, but they would at least smile and say, oh, isn't that fun? Matt got his real estate license and we'll keep an eye on him. Further out, friends and family of level 1, or friends, family of level 1. So bird dogs, friends and family, or friends of level 2. So your family members or friends also have friends that were not necessarily acquaintances and not necessarily on the wedding cut list or on the wedding list. So that periphery people. Now, when you start to build your SOIs, I'll show you in just a minute, those are the people that you definitely want to make sure they're in your drip campaign, and there's strategies that we have to help move them closer to the center. But they may or may not know who you are. So it's going to take a little bit more work to get them to kind of understand what you're all about. 5, your local business community. This has been a massive, massive part of my business. Growing up in the same town in which my granddad, great granddad, and now I all sell actively in. There's a lot of family roots and ties, and we're also a multi-generational town where I'm a 4th generation Severna Park resident, and I'm not like somebody who's an outlier. There's a lot of people who have been here for 3, 4, 5 generations. So it's kind of interesting. But the local business community has also been handed down over the generations. And I'll get into some more examples in just a minute. 6th, and the furthest out, complete strangers. I call these people friends we haven't met yet, but I try not to spend any time marketing or advertising to anyone that is in this outside realm. Mostly because there's just way, way, way too many people to advertise to effectively. And there's way, way, way too much money you can spend with 0 return on your investment. So I'll get into a little bit more here as we get going, but one more kind of analogy to look at, and to kind of steal Harvey's comment about the 6 degrees of separation. Obviously, we've all heard the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I like to say in my hometown, it's only about 2 or 3 degrees. And if I can get everyone in my community in 2 or 3 connections, I'll have a really good chance to grow my business. So this is my other analogy and my other visual for how real estate SOIs work. You in this solar system model are the star. You've heard the term rainmaker. I like the term your community star. Obviously, that's an internal term. We don't go walking around advertising that we're the star. But if you think about it, shouldn't you have the most influence or pull on the people that are coming from that inner rung, right? These are people that have already come to your wedding. They're already supporting your business. Shouldn't you be able to like maybe get 1 or 2 more possible leads out of them faster than you could ever get one complete stranger? And what's interesting about that is how many people of those 300, I saw that number pop up a lot, how many people of those 300 are in your inner rung? And for me, the 2 levels, level 1, the bird dogs, and level 2, the wedding list, are both in your inner rung. And I call those tier 1. In your tier 1, how many people are there? And then I ask a second question. How much of your marketing budget are you spending on tier 1 people? If you're anything like the average realtor, and this is people I've talked to in my own marketplace, no one spends nearly enough money on tier 1. A lot of the budget is going to tier 3, complete strangers or friends and family of friends and family. And it's really interesting to me because those are the people that we have the least amount of influence over. One thing also about the core people that I did not mention, and I'll say it again, I'll say it here. The core people that are in tier 1, when you think about them, of how to label them, and if you decide to split your SOI up like I have here and truly label them with a number next to their name in your database, how many of those people in those 2 rungs have used you already for real estate services? Because the only way they get in my inner rung is if they've either directly referred me business or I've worked with them directly. And if to stay in that inner rung, if they use someone else, it'd almost be unforgivable to the point where like maybe your friendship ends. And I know that sounds serious, but that's how tight my core nucleus is. And I want you to think about it that way. So coming off of the gravitational pull, questions for your SOI. How many people do you have in your inner rung? How much of your marketing budget are you spending, as I mentioned? And then how much of that budget percentage-wise are you spending on complete strangers? My director of marketing and I often sit down and look over an event that we're going to sponsor or something that we want to host. And we've made a big emphasis, especially because of COVID, to spend a majority of our dollars on the people that are in our tier 1 or just outside of like level 3. So in the chat box, I got group exercise number 2. Share with the group, since you've already shared your total number, and we've seen ranges, vast ranges, share with the group how many people you think are in your inner rung, and qualify it this way. I'm counting on these people to refer me a deal this year. So on my team, and based off of my experience, I am a large supporter of quality over quantity. And this is my SOI approach. So as I see the chat box light up here with all these different sizes of core people, these are numbers that are awesome. 5, 9, 15, 20. That's a good one there. 8, 10, 30. As you check down on our fellow folks on this Zoom of who are in their core sphere, I will tell you that I'd be very interested to do some market analysis on the number of units each of those people do in the next 12 months off of that projection. I do an audit on my SOI every 6 months and recalculate where people are. A lot of times there's not a ton of change, but when you start talking quality over quantity, you got to make sure the people you're spending your advertising and marketing dollars are actually supporting your business. So the quality over quantity approach. Definitions. So I went into a little bit of bird dog, but I'll go a little bit further. A bird dog for me, I have 4 currently, but 3 that are definitely like unbelievable. Pre-COVID, we did a little dinner every year, and I can't wait till post-COVID when we can do it again. But these are folks that are not affiliated with my team. They are not licensed. They are not necessarily blood relatives, or even necessarily a couple of them didn't even start off as great friends. But for whatever reason, they bought into my business like they were 51% owners, and they marketed me like the town crier and told every single person about me and told every single person that they should be using me. And it grew my business like instantaneously. And I've made sure to take care of those people throughout. The other term you may have heard, this is from the Workman system, the top 50. So Workman systems basically says if you have 50 people who refer you a deal every year or use you every year, if you have 50 units, doesn't matter where you live, that's going to be a heck of a book of business. So these top 50 are the people who I look to keep in a special ranking. And that's what I adjust every 6 months. Some people come in, some people come out, but the top 50 is who I'm spending my marketing dollars on right now. So level 1, level 2 in the bullseye. Bird dogs, how many do you need? How do you take care of them? And your sources of bird dogs. So as I just mentioned, they're not always blood relatives, but most of the time when you start out, those are the people that go to bat for you. However, in my experience, blood relatives have the least amount of influence on their friends because of course you're going to support your son. Of course you're going to support your nephew. But what about a complete stranger who you happen to pick up at an open house and they become your first client ever and end up referring to you 25 deals over the next 5 years? Those are people you need to take care of. And I make sure to like tell people their story and let them know that they're my first client ever. When it comes down to core sphere influence, I don't just want to be the person they turn to for real estate. I tell every client I ever meet that I have a guy or a gal for everything. So in Harvey's example of those 2 a.m. phone calls, I've received them. I received them via text message. I've received them via call. I've received emergency emails. Most of the time it has to do with something house related, but I will tell you 15 to 20% has nothing to do with that at all. They just know that I'm connected in our community and know people who can help them. I can tell you that already today, and on average, it's about 5 to 6 different people a day reaching out to me for a recommendation on something. I love it. And then last but not least, the way to kind of go is support their needs first. Nobody wants somebody to come shake a tin can at them and be like, help me, help me, help me, support my business. I found that if you dive in and help them first, magically over time, they buy into your business and there's a real reciprocation, even though it's not official. So one of the things, if you're brand new in the business and you're looking to do some stuff, find people who need sponsors. And you don't have to be the title sponsor. Go to be the lowest sponsor. But if you're consistent and do it every year and they know that they can count on you, it's a big deal. And if you get in the spot where you can be the title sponsor, select the one that you think has the biggest impact on both the community and your business. But fundraising efforts have needed more help in the past 12 months than ever because so many fundraisers have done in-person events. You want a way right now to start earning people and to get them into your core sphere? Find out their favorite fundraising effort and find out how you can help it. Everybody needs help. And then know what's important to them. A good question for everybody. Of those 20, I've seen as low as 2 and I saw as high as 50. I'm sure there's other numbers in there. But out of those numbers, how many of them do you know when their birthdays are, their anniversaries, their favorite beverage, what's their favorite hobby or favorite book? That is one of the things that I try to get to that level only with my top 50. So that if I see something funny on Instagram that I know would, I got a buddy who's really into cars. Every time I see a funny Instagram thing on cars, I send it to him. Every time I have a friend who's really big into barbecuing, every time I see something about barbecuing, whether it's something I actually clip out of a magazine or pick out of something online, I send it to him. It's just those things about, what they're into and you are making sure that they feel appreciated, or just the fact that you care about them and you're not too busy for them. So quality over quantity, part 2, level 3 and level 4. These are the friends and family of friends and family. So how do we convert them to tier 1? Well, obviously, the easiest way is to have them come do business with you. And I find that the way that most of these people are appreciative of you is, especially not to make it feel, I think the word we even said in the post out to everybody was the word yucky. It doesn't ever feel yucky with level 1 people. They're your key supporters. The people that might feel yucky are these people that don't really know you, and they don't really know who you are or what you're about, and they don't want you to necessarily see you right out of the gate as a salesperson. So how can you help them? I find that it's providing them that service, letting them know that you're here for more than just real estate. We do a fair amount of love it or list it scenarios where we go out, tell people what we think they would need to do to sell. And if they decide to stay, great. But you know what? They tell 6 of their friends that we came over, did a no hassle consultation, and boom, we just converted that person to tier 1 and potentially 3 or 4 of their friends. So the goodwill does come back to help you, but it can't be the first reason you do something. So that goes back to what I said last time, supporting them before they support you. Your friends and core SOI, the level 1 and 2, which makes up tier 1, they'll know everything there is to know about these people. So if you're lucky enough to get an appointment this afternoon and you go, gosh, it's so funny, Matt was literally just saying tier 2 listing appointment is a little different than a tier 1, right? Or a tier 2 buyer meeting is quite different than a tier 1. Tier 1, it's like, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about buying a house. Tier 2, you had to sell yourself a little bit. So before any tier 2 meeting, I'm reaching out to my tier 1 contact that knows them. Hey, Matt, they were in a direct referral. What should I do? Look on Facebook. Facebook shows you how many common friends you have. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to my level 1 people and said, hey, random, I don't know if you referred them or not, but this person reached out to me. And they go, oh my gosh, no, I didn't, but they're awesome. And they have a golden retriever. Eureka. Now I have at least something that I know about them walking in. Definitely a good tip there. And then that warm introduction. If you go to the next level and you say, hey, I'm really not vibing with this person and I don't want to make a bad first impression, can you make that first impression? One of the things pre-COVID that we would do is set up a coffee meeting or a happy hour where they would have that mutual introduction. And that would kind of be the put a face with a name meeting without being too awkward and going straight into selling. So what about level 5 and level 6? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the tips and tricks here are support the businesses that you like to wish, or that you like and wish to support. So these local businesses may or may not support you, but you need to support them if you wish to go out into a bigger sphere. But what's interesting, start local and start with businesses owned by friends and family of tier 1 or tier 2. And then caution, introduce tier 1 members to tier 3 businesses. But the caution is this. Note, before you branch out to support new businesses, triple check, and I'm being serious, triple check that no one that is in your or in your teammates' tier 1 sphere, and that they don't own a competing business. Because the last thing you want to do is have the backfire of, hey, I'm supporting a tier 3 business here. Oh my gosh, somebody I sold a house to 2 years ago and is firmly in tier 1 or tier 2 has the same business. You start blowing them up on Facebook about a grand opening and go, whoopsie daisy. You want to talk about killing any future relationship with that person. I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen bad. So make sure that when you introduce yourself to these businesses, just do a triple check. And the more detailed records you keep of your SOI and what they own and what they do, the more you'll be able to avoid this. So back to introducing tier 1 members to tier 3 businesses. This is one of my favorite things. I will, instead of having a meeting at somebody's house, I will have a meeting at a restaurant. The restaurant is owned by one of my friends and past clients. I'll call the restaurant ahead of time and make sure I get a good server or that they stop by and say hi. You want instant credibility and look like the mayor of your town? Have the owner of the restaurant stop by randomly and say, hey, Matt, how's it going? And who's this? Oh, are you guys thinking about moving? Awesome. I used Matt 2 years ago. Amazing. Blah, blah, blah. Done. It's awesome. They feel a part of the community. They feel like they're VIP. And it's one of those things where a tier 2 person all of a sudden feels like a tier 1, and you can move straight on to listing or buyer docs in my experience. So managing your sphere, let's get into the nuts and bolts. So moving people in and moving people out of tiers. Sometimes it's hard and it's not permanent, but you have to relegate people out of your top 50. And it could be somebody that bought and sold a house with you 10 or 15 years ago, depending on how long you've been in the business. But for whatever reason, they haven't referred to you a single person since. They never respond to any of your messages, or if they do, it's real short and like, hey, thanks very much. They're not somebody you want to be spending top 50 money on. These are people that you want to move to tier 2, keep them in the campaigns, but they don't get the top 50 treatment. If they all of a sudden notice something different, that's not a bad thing. If they reach out to you and say, hey, what happened? Why am I not getting X? You can handle that however you want, but I'm pretty transparent about it. I don't need referrals from people to stay in top 50. I just need the support. Slow and steady wins the race. Create a system. Before I got my director of marketing, I'd have all of these sphere of influences ideas, but no one to execute them. And one of the things that I keep is a journal, and it's actually just on the other side of my computer here. And anytime I get a random marketing idea, I write it down. And it's amazing how many things I'm going to share with you later in this presentation started on this piece of paper. And for me, the most critical thing about slow and steady is so many people, it's almost like dating, want to get from a tier 4 person and immediately make them tier 1. It doesn't always happen. And like Harvey said, if you try to skip over tier 2, tier 3 and get straight to tier 4, you're going to crash and burn. So instead, go slow and steady. If the people start to show some interest in your business, move them up to tier 3 and market to them that way. If they then show even more interest or even reach out to you for an appointment, you have an opportunity to make them tier 2, or better yet, core sphere. But if you don't have a system, and I'm guilty of this, years ago, I have an awesome idea that I wanted to reach out and talk to somebody about something very specific. And some of it's so timely that if a day went by, it wouldn't be appropriate to call them even tomorrow about it, let alone mailers or cool things that I wanted to tell people about the marketplace. Weeks go by, months go by, it's no longer relevant. They already know that information. So I'm not the one bringing them any value. I'm the person telling them something they already knew. And that can be damaging to your reputation within your sphere. So number 3, audit your SOI biannually. I already mentioned this, but my director of marketing and I look at ours, and then everyone on the team is also a little bit responsible for making sure theirs is up to date. But here's the deal, guys. Like, if you don't know who's in your SOI or what level they are, and you're just I call it the buckshot approach of that bullseye, and just throwing money at the whole thing and hoping something sticks, you might get lucky and you might start to generate some business, but it's just that it's lucky. If you start to create the system, audit your SOI, and really take care of your top 50 people, I think your business will explode. Here's how. You have a perfect opportunity. I have a perfect opportunity. No one's perfect at this. Do I spend enough time on prospecting all the time? Absolutely not. Am I making a concerted effort to do so more than ever? Absolutely. And this class actually got me reinvigorated on doing some of the stuff that we used to do and trying it again. Because here's what's up. COVID. Blame COVID. That's your apology script. If you've never heard of the term, this is like the I'm sorry I've been, out of touch and haven't kept up, and I'm going to make a new effort to be the person that I used to be for you. And, I hope you and I can get together this summer. You don't have to go that way. You can talk about like, oh my gosh, can you believe it's been a year to the date, by the way, of Maryland's stay-at-home order? What a perfect way to say, hey, I can see the end on the horizon, and I can see us grabbing a drink together or hopping on the boat or going out to dinner. And these are people, when you look at that list, the average number is like 20. You can knock this out in a week. And it doesn't have to be as apologetic. It can be mostly like positive about what you're going to do post COVID. And I'll be honest with you, I have a calendar right now and I have my top 50 on it. And I'm literally going down it and trying to fill dates in the future of things that I want to do with them. And every person that I've reached out to has been pumped to look forward to something other than staring at their own four walls. So if you need an apology script and you don't know of one, just blame COVID. 5, don't overthink it. Every one of my teammates, when they first start, myself included, completely overthinks content. You're looking for something profound to share with your SOI. You don't need it. It's about quick relevancy. Get it to them today. Don't wait for the perfect layout or the perfect picture. You should have those things already in your arsenal. Have the branded materials, and Century 21 Online does an amazing job. I came from a mom and pop brokerage before this. We had nothing like it. We had to do all of it on our own. And the 21 Online stuff, to be able to click 2 things and have a just listed, or click 2 things and have it under contract for Instagram is pretty cool. So don't overthink it. Let them know of your successes. Let them know of the stuff that you do well, and kind of just see what works. Some of the most random things we do for our SOI, like our football pick'em. We do it every week during the NFL season, and it's pick 5 games. We have 5 games. All you got to do is pick the winner. It's completely free, completely fun, completely compliant. But the winner gets up to $100 gift card we did it for this year. We changed it because of COVID wrecking the restaurant industry. We did nothing but local restaurant gift cards. You got to pick, or we had a themed one of the week, and those were all the people in our SOI. So again, layered. We have a contest for our Facebook followers. We have a $100 gift card to the restaurant that we have a relationship with. So we're knocking out 2 things with one contest. We are creating some fun in a time, especially this fall, where there's a lot of uncertainty. So again, don't overthink it. That was an idea I came up with 12 years ago and just typed it out one time. And I was averaging 10 likes and like 3 comments per post. And now we're getting 110 people entering this lottery thing every week. And these are people who cannot wait till noon on Thursday when I post the new games. So if I have a moral, it's more about what you can do for other people than what they can do for you. It cannot be a one-way street. Every single person on this Zoom has met another salesperson or another realtor where you know that they joined something just to get business. It cannot be this way. I like to be the guy that connects other businesses, connects other people socially. So if I look at my SOI as that bullseye, I actually like to look at it more as a wheel, and that all the spokes come back through me. And when people are out to dinner 6 months from now and their friendship is grown immensely, and they're like, how in the heck did we meet? It's amazing how many times people are like, oh, we met because of Matt and we went to that event that he hosted and that's when he introduced us. You want to talk about power? Being your ears burning on a Saturday night when people are enjoying themselves, it is powerful, and it's definitely led to my business being able to grow. So Here's a fun one. Contest 2. Who is zooming in the farthest away from Severna Park, Maryland? So please type in the comment box your city and the miles per Google Maps. And then my director of marketing for all the prizes today will reach out and send you a prize. So if you are, I see Hawaii. So if you can, on your phone, check how many miles that is, I'll come back and make sure we get the winner. Baltimore, you might get the closest award. All right, so building a community using examples from my career. There's my great-grandfather there, Raymond Grant Sr., and there's my granddad, obviously pre-COVID, Ray Grant. So he, as I mentioned earlier, he turns 98 next month. And I can't tell you how blown away he is by the changes in the real estate market since he was in the business. 2-page contracts. You had to go to the listing broker and give them like your driver's license to, or real estate license to get a key. And back in those days, there was no such thing as buyer agency in Maryland. So even when I have lunch with him now and start talking buyer's agency, it's amazing just how much. Oh, we got a couple long miles there. I will check back in on that in just a minute. So examples from my career. The beautiful thing about my start of my career, if you will, is that I had the ability of a couple of pros. I had a large family sphere of influence. So both my dad's side, the Weibels, and my mom's side, the Grants, who were in real estate, both were in Severna Park. So I'm the hometown guy. The negatives were that I had no active book of business. I was getting out of a marketing career in a restaurant industry. And although my family had been selling real estate for years, I had no people calling me up to be like, hey, I'm ready to buy and sell real estate. And I think that was mostly because the business had been stopped for about 8 years after my granddad retired. And I was young and inexperienced. I was like 24, about to turn 25. Plus, I know it sounds crazy because it's 2021 and just about everybody I've talked to's market's crazy. In 2010, that wasn't the case. We had 42 months of inventory here in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. Wouldn't that be nice right about now? But I didn't get scared of this. I put together an action plan. I used my business background and what I had done for the restaurants and created a 15-year business plan. I reached for the stars, aimed for the stars, whatever analogy you want to use, and wrote down everything I wanted to do in this business over 2010 to 2025. I created my first SOI list and I used my wedding list. I legitimately used the spreadsheet my wife had just used, as I mentioned, married for 12 years, licensed for 12. And used that to send out all the people on the wedding list and immediately like, hey, look who just got licensed. I also did what I'm about to show you on the next slide, went down and tried to, if all these people that might know who you are, so like level 1, 2s, 3s, and even 4s, so the top 2 tiers of SOI, if they're like up in the tree, like how do you shake that contact information out? Well, you know, even 11 years ago was a little bit harder, but now 11 and a half, 12 years later, it's so easy to reconnect with people. And what better way to do an apology script and be like, I need to add you to my holiday mailing list, right? Who's going to say no to that? And PS, if they do say no, they're not even on that SOI. They fell off the cliff. So created my first SOI list, and I took on my disadvantages kind of head on. So I wrote down my disadvantages at the time, that I was so young that I had to grow this beard. And I kept the beard ever since because I wanted to look a little bit older. I know that sounds funny, but it actually helped. I was also in a market that was completely saturated with like older agents that had tons of experience. So my uphill climb was pretty immense. But the first few months I got in the business, I realized that I had a huge advantage over these people. Not only was I young and hungry, but I had a marketing degree and I understood technology. Everyone else looked at technology as like this curse and they were afraid of it. I took it on and said, this is going to be my niche. I want first-time buyers. I want tenants. I'll take all of the crumbs that the top producers don't want. And in 2010, even some of the producers were working crumb deals. So I had to kind of fight tooth and nail to get up that thing. So I call it like the art of war, right? If someone's bigger than you, you kind of just know that you're smaller and you try to be nimble. So I knew that these people were bigger, but that they did have weaknesses. Maybe their book of business was so vast and they didn't have the support system that this person's told me 3 times during the listing appointment how they want to be called every morning. Well, I know for a fact that this person that's doing $20 million and is my competition is not going to call them every morning. So, hey, I promised to do that. I'd set a alarm on my phone. I'd wake up and call the person. And in that soft market, I had a huge opportunity. Like right now, for example, if you reach out to your SOI and be like, the market's on fire. Oh, everyone's gonna be like, I know, it's everywhere. And everyone's talking about real estate. Well, in 2010, it was the exact opposite. Everybody was going, the market's terrible. Oh, doom and gloom, it's over, blah, 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 blah. I took that as my second advantage with technology of my first advantage and let everyone know anytime there was good news about real estate. Hey, the interest rates came down. Hey, the government's offering a first-time buyer program. Hey, on social media, I just sold my first house. And not a lot of businesses were on social media back then. So I look at it as those 3 things have really helped me get a little bit of momentum. And it led to momentum marketing in general. And that is my next bullet point here. Momentum marketing for any person in any point of their career is the easiest, cheapest way to get your SOI to give a you know what about you. Give them some good news, tell them what's up. Even if they know that the real estate market's already on fire, go do something for your community instead. Let them know about that. Let it not be about real estate then. And what you're going to find out is that these people like success. You can't be, always bragging about it, but they do like success. And if you're newer or younger and they are buying into your business, those are the people that might become your bird dogs because they bought in low. And as you ascend up the real estate ladder and become a top producer, they like to tell their friends, hey, I knew Matt when he only had 1 listing or sold 1 house. And now they're like, hey, I got invited to the top 50 VIP party. And people are like, well, how can I get in that? Bird dogs at work, trying to get people into my top tier. Gotta love it, right? So you need to grow that community organically through that momentum. So I use the advantages that I did to get any of the business I could. And then as I got that business, I tried to create a network from within. So my first year, I joined the Chamber of Commerce. And I know this sounds old school, but I will tell you, this has led to more business than just about any club or thing I've ever joined, because the time I joined, they were desperate for young people to get into the local Chamber of Commerce and get eventually on their board of directors and eventually vice president to help them get businesses into the community. Because again, 2010, the market and the economy weren't great. Well, guess what? This Chamber of Commerce is run by 2 of the most connected people in all of Severna Park. In particular, the past CEO, she knew literally every person. And if you got on their side and she was in your corner, it was basically the greatest thing ever, because you want to talk about a warm introduction to all level 4 in your tier, or where those businesses that don't know you necessarily or kind of get to know you. Some of my strongest connections 12 years later are from people I met that year as a brand new, never sold a house agent, but was walking in on behalf of the Severna Park Chamber of Commerce and not on behalf of the Matt Weibel team. So that was my door in. It's definitely a great way to get to know the business community, but it's also a great way if you're already successful. What can you do for your community? What can you do for the organization? And for me, mine was the restaurants. So I just got out of a restaurant marketing gig and I loved the people I worked with, but I wasn't a restaurateur. I knew I wanted to get in real estate. And when I came over to the Chamber of Commerce, I said to Linda, who was the past CEO, hey, why doesn't Severna Park do anything to showcase and show off all of these amazing restaurants that we have here in our community? Annapolis does, Baltimore does, but we don't. Why? We have, 2 dozen, 3 dozen awesome restaurants. And she goes, hey, I've been wanting to do this. There's two problems. We don't have a location, and we don't have anybody that wants to run it. I said, well, one of those problems is solved. I'll run it. And she says, hey, good news is a place up the street just opened up and they want us to host it there. And literally over 2 or 3 meetings, we created the Taste and Sip of Severna Park, which I'll show you some pictures of later. And that's become one of the biggest events in town pre-COVID. And we can't wait to do it again. But we've done it for 10 consecutive years. And at this point, the restaurants are lining up to sign up for us. We don't even have to advertise it. And we get somewhere between like 300 to 500 people that are all locals that come out to this event. And it supports the local restaurant industry, and it's a great way to network. And then I use it as a customer appreciation party. Again, 3 layers. It's a great way to spend money if you get multiple things out of it. So your first year, I started thinking back to some of my teammates, and I asked them to share some of their ideas. So 1, who did you invite to your wedding graduation party? What are some things that you can join? Are there networking groups or social clubs? In Maryland, we have a ton of real estate clubs, and they're realtors that kind of align with your level of business or people that you might want to know. And a lot of people are like, Matt, the last thing I want to do after spending all day talking to other realtors is go hang out and have like a beer or a cup of coffee or breakfast with another realtor. I get it. But you know how many times right now that's coming up huge that I have a relationship with people in this local market when there's 6 offers and they can't break the tie other than, hey, Matt Weibel, your friend here, and we're using our go-to lender, and everything's going to be okay because of how many deals we did last year. So in terms of creating your name, it's not just with the public, it's making sure your reputation is pristine and sterling in the real estate community as well. So first thing every single person that was new on my team said is, you always ask us, make sure you ask them, do you have a niche? Ours is languages. So if someone has a specific need that's out there and you can help it, they're going to use you. And I have been blown away by our languages program. I've met some amazing people. Our team has picked up amazing top tier SOI clients. And I know for a fact I would have never, ever had the opportunity to meet them if it wasn't for my amazing teammates that helped get our team's foot in the door. So maybe you don't speak another language, but what do you do? Is there something that you like, or is there something that you're passionate about? And then go back up. Is there a social club? Is there a networking group? Guess what, guys? If you search and search and search and can't find a networking group or social club, eureka, you've literally just struck gold. Create it yourself. Become the admin. There are so many easy ways on Facebook or Instagram or other group chats to get people around the country or in your area, if it's not real estate related, that have the exact same interest as you. Again, going back to the first question I asked is, why are we advertising after complete strangers? Well, the caveat is, what happens if that complete stranger has a very, very, very similar interests? They won't be strangers for long. And they're that last tier that I said, friends we just haven't met yet. So when you look at your niches, find out which you think is the best way to get yourself maybe some access to clubs or people that you wouldn't have otherwise. So how are you going to get through the noise? What separates you? Have an awesome elevator pitch. Be able to just crush it and let people know who you are, what you stand for, and what you do like that. So I'm a 4th generation realtor, born and raised here in Severna Park. I have a 25-person team, have 2 boys and a wife, and we love living in Severna Park. Would you like to live in Severna Park too? And it's amazing how quickly, if they're not living in Severna Park or looking elsewhere, I can tweak the tail end. Would you like to live in Anne Arundel County? Hey, I have experience looking in this place. Crush it. Work on it, and play with it. The best time to play with it's an open house. You get all these people walking in and you're brand new in the business. Give each one of them elevator pitch until it clicks with someone, and there you go, you got it. So What's your weakness as perceived by your SOI? Do any of us, myself included, have the wherewithal or maybe the fortitude to reach out to our SOI and ask what our weaknesses are? Probably not, but we should. And if you don't want to do that, write down on a piece of paper what you want to improve in 2021. We do a business planning session with each of our teammates, and I ask them. It's not necessarily business related. You know what a lot of people want to do is find a work-life balance. We don't have the ability to do that in our business sometimes. Well, maybe your weakness, if that's what you feel, is that your SOI perceives you're too busy for them. Guess what? That's the campaign I'm literally about to roll out, because I've heard from people that that's basically what my competition is using against me. Hey, Matt's got 25 people and they're crushing it and they're doing all this business. How's he going to give you the level of support? So I went grassroots to my top 50 and reached out to every single one of them with a from the desk of Matt Weibel to them letter saying, my team has never been in a better place. I have the most efficient systems we've ever had, which proudly allows me to do what I love best, which is serving you personally in your real estate needs. The amount of people that reached back immediately and said, I know that, was comforting. But there were a few people that were like, I'm so glad you sent me this because we were worried we might have to not work with you. And that's crucial. So wherever you're at in your career, make sure you do that. But back to your first year. You got to start using all of this to develop your brand and your systems and how to tell your SOI exactly what your brand is all about. Mine's community. Anyone that's met me, if you come to Serena Park, you see me walk around. If I walk into a store and don't know the owner or somebody that's there, I make it a point to introduce myself to someone, even during COVID times, from a safe, socially distant place. But I pride myself on walking into any place and someone knowing who I am. You know why? Because I've grown my SOI using these 150 SOI prompts. I will send these to anyone who wants them. All you got to do is email us, and I'll share the email address in just a minute. But these are people prompts for creating a sphere of influence. If you're stuck and you're some of the people that put up there earlier, I only got 50, I only got 60, I only got 80 people. I think you can get to 250 people like that if you just have one name for each of these prompts. So as you go through some of these, they're pretty straightforward and you probably already have them, but there are a ton. And it really makes you sit there and wonder, hey, do you know the names of the people at your car wash? Do you know your post office person? How about all the staff at your church? And it is wild as you go down this, how much you don't know about the people who might already be in what you perceive as your tier 1 or tier 2. One of our newest teammates brought this list with him. He had found it at, online or something, but it was worth repeating because it is just profound how many different questions are here. And it's like, well, who is your pest control person? Well, I know the owner of that company. Do I know all of his staff? Why not? Why don't I? That's my own fault. I need to find out every single person on his staff is, because we're the #1 supporter of his business. But wouldn't that be a real kick in our shin if we saw on Facebook that one of his staff members used another real estate salesperson to buy or sell their house? So it's amazing how much, when you go through these 150, you'll be able to quickly double or triple your SOI. So if you want this, please email info@themattweibelteam.com. Subject line, SOI prompts. Oh, hold on now. Go back. Sorry about that. Subject line, SOI prompts, and then we will make sure you all get them. So once again, info@themattweibelteam.com, and I'm going to type it right here in the chat so everybody has it. All right. It's in the chat box if you guys want to get the email address. So moving on, year 2 through 5, kind of building your brand takes time, as I mentioned, and it sometimes also takes a big break. So I'd love to hear everybody's big break story in Vegas. If we're there next year and we get to do this again, and we'll tweak it obviously, but I'd love to hear everybody's big break story. My big break story is this house right there, and those awesome people, Lynn and Larnie Martin. My big break is the Chef Boyardee's house. So yeah, Chef Boyardee was a real person. Yeah, he lived in Maryland and he owned several mansions on this unbelievable piece of land called Bennett Point. If you want to look up Chef Boyardee's main mansion, definitely Google it. It's ridiculous. This was his second mansion on the same piece of land. This is on the Wye River, some of the richest real estate on the Eastern Shore. And these clients already had a realtor. They'd already used her several times, but I was like basically a big brother to their middle daughter when we were in undergrad. And I did everything I could to make sure her and her friends, always my wife too, we were basically called Mama and Papa Weibel. And I always lived, even way back in high school and beyond, never burn a bridge and always treat people how you'd like to be treated. And I was a senior and these girls were freshmen, and they definitely needed some people to kind of keep an eye on them and help them out. My wife and I were those people. We'd drive them home if they had too much. Maybe they were in a place they didn't want to be. They'd call us up and we'd come pick them up. True, like big brother, big sister. So fast forward a couple years and we're all graduated. I'm in my second year of real estate at this point, and I'm clawing at a career. I basically made half of what I made my previous year at my marketing gig. My wife and I were both having serious doubts about, if this was a good decision. Maybe the market wasn't just the right time. So my friend Jacqueline calls me up. It was the Super Bowl when the Packers played the Steelers. It's the only Super Bowl ever that I don't remember a single play, because Jacqueline called me up and said, "You need to get your over to my parents' house immediately. Don't ask any questions, just get here." I said, the game's literally about to kick off in 30 minutes. I'm at my parents' house. She's like, "I don't care, get over here." I said, "Do I need to dress up?" She's like, "It wouldn't hurt." Ran home, changed, drove over to this house about 25 minutes away. And as I walk in the door, she comes up, gives me a big hug and says, "Hey," she's the vice president, like on the board of directors of some massive Fortune 500 company, by the way. She goes, "Hey, I'm glad you came. I want to buy a $2 million house with you. We got cash, won't be a big deal. But the other agent that I want to list my house with, she's not going to have the time or patience with me. I know you're young and hungry from all the marketing you've sent me. And you were like a big brother to Jacqueline. And I hope this really springboards your career." I literally almost fainted. At that point, I don't even know if I had done 2 million in total sales. So someone saying, "Hey, here's a $2 million purchase," it went back with my momentum marketing. My momentum marketing said, if I can sell a $500,000 house, and anyone in my SOI that owns or wants to buy a house less than 500,000 is going to use me. If I can get to 750, a mil, well, oh my gosh, you want to talk about getting in the fast lane and going straight to big time realtor. Post a $2 million sale on your Facebook or Instagram tomorrow and be like, "Here it is." Guess what? I showed these people 150 different waterfront homes over 9 months. And we got to know each other really, really well. And when they finally bought and settled, I did faint. I did almost fall flat on the floor, because I used that commission check as my down payment on my current home, and was able to use all of the marketing henceforth of these pictures here to show everybody that I could sell big time real estate. And my book of business of all the people in the periphery, all the people who had been like paying attention to my marketing, exploded. I went from that year doing 4.5, almost 5 million, to 12 million the next year, 20 million the year after that. And my biggest year before I started the team was 25 million that next year. So like literally boom, because of this big break. So I ask everybody here, what's your big break? Have you had it yet? And mine really also came from hiring an assistant. And that's what opened my eyes up to creating a team. So hiring an assistant for me gave me that kind of clout, with especially with my older clients, who when I was out in an appointment or doing a meeting like this, they'd call the team line and say, hey, and she'd say, hey, the desk of Matt Weibel. And people were like, he's 26 years old and he has a secretary. It at least picked me up 10 additional transactions because of the level of professionalism that people were getting. They were expecting this. I gave them this. I have kept that same mentality all 12 years of my career. And that's why I'm not afraid to continue to grow my team, because every person that I help grow their business will come back and help me also. So building a team, it was a natural progression. As I started to grow my business and my brand, I could not provide the same level of service as in 2010 as I could in 2013. I just couldn't keep up with it. To go from, 3 or 4 clients to 40, it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? So first thing, I hired my dad. Check, 4th generation realtor, hooray. Second thing I did was hire my best man. Check, he's a teacher at the time, available weekends and nights, and most importantly, summer. And then my assistant became a coordinator. What's really cool is while I was doing all this and I was able to be in 3 or 4 places at a time, business really started to pick up, which allowed me to get even more involved in the community by joining boards, as being on people's board of directors. So why was I able to get on the board of directors? Because of my membership with the chamber. And because I was a board member with the chamber, I got the experience in that world to then combine with the experience I was getting in the business world, where people were reaching out to me to say, would you like to be on the board? It's just amazing how little things like that are the big break that you're looking for. And if you haven't had your big break yet, sometimes you got to put your phone down and listen, right? And you have to be available to leave a Super Bowl party at the expense of pissing off both your wife and your mom. Needless to say, they don't remember being pissed off afterwards because of what ended up happening. But your 2nd through 5 years, somewhere between 85 and 90% of all realtors fail before year 5. If you want a good read, Google Tom Ferry's 10 Reasons Most Real Estate Agents Fail. The biggest reason, his number one, is that people are like interested, but they're not committed. How many people do you know that are interested in real estate, but they're not committed to doing the hard work of what I've already talked about and what we're going to talk about further? It's amazing. So many people have the power to access their SOI and do amazing things in this business, but they 100% won't pick up the phone or even text people that know them because they're afraid to talk to their own SOI. That doesn't make any sense to me. These are people who should be supporting you or knowing you. And if you want to do a real audit on that SOI, like look over that list and say who you have like butterflies calling. If you look at their name on a piece of paper and get butterflies, they're like, ooh, I don't know if I have the capacity or the energy right now to talk to that person. Move them down a tier. My core SOI are people that literally, if I see their phone, other than being on a Zoom like this right now, but pretty much any other time, if my top 50 reach out to me, I pick it up. So I asked that question, why are you afraid to talk to your SOI? Is it lack of confidence in your ability? Is it your lack of confidence in the market or your experience? Well, those are all things that are fixable. And what I tell each of my teammates, especially in years 2 through 5, listen to your mentors, listen to your pod leader, listen to me. We have first person stories of every example in real estate because of the volume we do. Use those verbatim, but say in third person. So when you use a third person story, you can say, hey, I heard this story from my team leader the other day. We had a deal just like this. You know how much more comfortable that seller or buyer is? So if you don't have those stories, ask people for them. Create a mastermind club in your brokerage. Create a group of people that you meet virtually here today. Find people that are at your same level. Those are the people to talk to. And then if you have questions, bring them back to your management or broker. There's just so many resources if you take advantage of them, but so many people are afraid to be told no. So, oh yeah, always be logoed. I can't tell you how many people I see, and you guys are all probably sitting there nodding. Just this past weekend, out showing houses. You know how many people were out waiting to get in a house? Waiting as I came out of showing a home, where I got up and there's someone coming out of the house and we're waiting to go in, and I couldn't tell who the realtor was. Are you kidding? You want to talk about like instant credibility, be the best dressed realtor that's showing houses, or at very least always be logoed. So I have a lapel pin that has my logo. As you can see, my background has a logo. And when it gets hot out and I switch to golf polos, every polo I ever wear has my logo on it. You know why? You never know a good story that will come up from randomly be waiting in line to get a cup of coffee at the coffee store where the owners are in your tier 1 or 2, and they come up to you and say, hey, that person over there just said something about real estate, you might want to introduce yourself. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to bother him, that's not my style. And then all of a sudden they come up and bother you because they see you talking to another customer who was your client and you're logoed. True story. 15 minutes later, they're getting pre-approved by my lender. 45 minutes later, we were seeing a house. 2 hours later, they were under contract. 30 days later, I was receiving a commission check just because I stopped in a coffee store and was logoed. So reason number one, let the other agent, let the people know, let the seller know who the agent is at all times. And two, make sure, without a doubt, that people know who you are. Don't be a secret agent. So what have we been doing lately? So years 5 to present day, which is year 12. Here's our squad at our office opening last year. This was January 2020. We built out this beautiful office in which I sit, and then COVID hit and we all went and worked from home. Luckily, we're starting to open back up using protocol, and we've been in the office for about 7 months, but our office is big enough where everybody can spread out. But my ultimate goal over the next 3 to 5 years is continued personal growth while repeating the success with teammates. So one of my most proud achievements is not my personal success. It's when people join our team and blow up. So I have 2 examples: a nurse who got out of the business after having her second child, got into real estate. Her name is Lynn Pieper, and last year she did 17 million in sales herself, her 5th year in business. Joe Smith, our ASL, who got his license because he was sitting at a settlement table as an interpreter, and his deaf clients who he was interpreting for had no idea what was going on because the realtor assumed that they could read lips. By the way, never assume that. Always get an interpreter or always refer to an ASL agent. Otherwise, you're doing those people a disservice. But Joe got passionate that day to join the industry, and he blew up and did 17.2 million last year in just his 4th year. So when you hear these examples that I'm giving you, it's not just a one-off, I'm successful, build a $35 to $40 million a year book of business for myself. I'm bringing people up now who are sustaining 10, 15, $20 million. And our goal for next year, for this year, is 125 million. And by next year being at 150 million because of the people we brought in that are starting to enter year 2, 3, and 4, which I find is when you really find out who has a brand or not. So I was blessed. My family SOI led to me completing a 15-year business plan in just 10 years. I'm looking ahead to the next 10 and saying, where can we go? I couldn't be more happy to be at Century 21 because I have so many more people to meet. So I love being able to share these ideas with you. And I have a secret that I don't think a lot of people think about when they're hiring to their office or hiring to their team or even thinking about getting into real estate. But I found that the secret is that having every one of my teammates having a secondary household income. So it's either my teammate's side hustle or they have a spouse that can basically carry the financial load until they can maximize my real estate systems. The slow and steady way is the way to win long term, but I get it. I got bills to pay and I can't wait to grow overnight. It's a lot easier if you have another job or a spouse that has another job that can pay the bills. Live below your means for 5 years and watch what happens. And then recruiting awesome teammates that buy into our vision and systems. That's the ultimate goal. As I said earlier, you got to be your own CEO. You got to be able to look yourself in the mirror as your only stockholder and say, did I put in a big day? And if the answer is no, good news. You got tomorrow to do better. So what are some of our SOI marketing strategies? I wanted to share some of these and I'll go through them quick. Facebook business page postings. We got our listings and team stuff, team Instagram. Please give us a follow. We do email branded campaigns. We sponsor a ton of stuff, but one of the ones I like the best is our branded local student athlete of the month column. There's an example here to the right. It's in our local, hyper local newspaper. Every other realtor in town puts a big ad about themselves and houses. No one cares. I put a picture of student athletes of the month. People loved it. You know why? Because if you read, you can't see it, but if you zoom in there, these aren't necessarily the best athletes on the team. They're the kids who are the quiet leaders. They're the people who put in the hard work and grind and hustle. And that's what I like to think about our team. We're the people that grind and hustle and get the job done. And we don't necessarily need all the fanfare. But these kids all of a sudden get the picture in the newspaper and get an article written about them. It's a great way to maybe move somebody from a tier 4 into a tier 3, or a tier 3 into a tier 2. It's definitely something that you want to check out in your local area. It doesn't have to be athletics either. It can be art. It can be whatever you're passionate about, but definitely make sure you do it. I also do credit classes for high school seniors. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. Settlement anniversary cards, thank you cards, birthday texts, and Facebook posts. Hosting community events. We're doing a blood drive with the local hospital. We have Toys for Tots drop here, taste and sip. Oh, hold on a second. Sorry about that. And golf tournaments. And then my VIP events are top 50. I'll just show you. So here's the high school credit class. One of my marketing director is a retired or former teacher, and she helped me create a curriculum on the game of credit, which is kind of a play on the game of life. That's right. It is the game of credit for college-aged people, and we get to go with high school seniors that are going off to credit or going off to college, and we tell them about the dangers of bad credit. So we help them to begin their ideas of don't sign up for that blanket at the football game that says, hey, you get a credit card, but you also get this free blanket. Don't do it. You have no idea how many of my friends who did that ended up with bad credit scores and the inability to rent or own longer than if they just didn't do that. But it goes in more in depth to talking to them and their parents about things that they can do. Hey, let's not put the credit card in the kid's name or in your name. Put it in the kid's name and copay, or make a co-card so they can start to build credit as soon as possible. The difference between someone coming out of college with like a 750 credit score or 0 credit or bad credit is profound. People are starting to look at it from employment. People are starting to look at it obviously for housing. And if you have college age kids and you want to know more about this, hit me up. I'll send over my curriculum. It's good stuff. Port Discovery. So this is our big top 50 events. We rent out the entire Port Discovery. This was the one that we did. We had another one obviously scheduled, but we had to cancel. And we had our inaugural client appreciation event. And this is like the Children's Museum. There's a couple of pictures there. But we basically did an invite only, top tier core bird dog people that had age appropriate kids. And then for people who maybe didn't have kids or didn't want to come to this event, we did a wine tasting party where everything's paid for. It's a great time out. I will tell you guys that it sounds really expensive and it's not cheap, but it's not like, oh my God, I hope we get a deal from this or else I'm going bankrupt. But the amount of unbelievable response we had to this was my eureka moment. Of stop spreading your good word about real estate to people that don't care who you are and focus 80% of your budget on people who already know and already care about your business. Since this event, people have literally reached out to me and been like, how do we get invited to this again? Do I have to buy another house? I'm like, no, just keep supporting my business. And then they ask straight up, how do we support? Let your friends and family know. It never hurts to refer, right? But this has become one of those things where I can't wait to do it again. And like the post-COVID world, I think people are going to be loving and jonesing to get out of their house. I'll share this real quick. This is a video we did on our taste and sip to give you an idea just how big it is. Again, 20 to 30 restaurants, bars, and liquor stores in town. We are the title sponsor. We've done it for 10 years, and I'll let the video explain itself.
We're just wrapping up the 10th annual Taste and Sip of Greater Severna Park, and the Matt Weibel team would like to wish you a happy holidays.
So it gives you an idea. Obviously, it's come a long way in 10 years, but having a videographer and stuff there is I'm glad we did, because it definitely got more people interested in the event than ever before. So one of the things I wanted to discuss is team SOI. So one thing you got to be careful about when combining 25 solar systems, as I mentioned earlier, is there's more stars. The more stars you have, the more pool you have, right? Obviously, the more people you have, the more SOIs you have, the more ability you have to influence people to use you for real estate services. But you got to be careful. Too much overlapping spheres can cannibalize and really tick off teammates that have been loyal to you. So we're as conscious and careful as possible not to cannibalize people of book of business. And then our team truly is a family. So if there's ever an instance where someone can't decide between two people because they're equal friends with them both, split the commission. It's one time. Examples of taking our languages into the community. So there is our welcome sign that we have here in our office in all 5 of our languages. But a couple of things that have come up are the Latin Fiesta Latina, which is in Annapolis. We have the Korean Festival, which is in Howard County. And then we also have Deaf and Hard of Hearing Night at the Frederick Keys. So when you have a niche, like I mentioned earlier, and ours being languages, try to find out events or groups that are already in play and introduce yourself, or for me, my teammates, to those things. So it's been pretty awesome. And we've created some really good lasting relationships in each of those communities. So, hey, Matt, SOI marketing during COVID, really? All those events you just showed us were pre-COVID. What the heck is a person to do when all these events sound awesome, but didn't COVID wreck your marketing calendar in 2020? Yep, sure did. But you know what? You can't sit still. And we had to create new ways to get in front of our SOI in a safe and fun manner. One of the ways we did that is through the FLAG program, Frontline Appreciation Group. And we donated meals to Spring Arbor, which is a local assisted living facility. And as you can see, my pop-op is there and has been on lockdown for over a year, but can't wait to see him here soon. He just got his second shot, so hopefully he can come out and see us here shortly. But we provided meals from one of our go-to top 10 SOI member from Gary's Grill, and we donated meals to their entire staff. It was a no-brainer. Those folks, the hospital staff and frontline workers have gotten some love from the public, but they deserve all the credit in the world because they're doing the work and putting themselves at risk for the health of and help of my own granddad. So couldn't have said thanks enough. The Severna Park Chamber of Commerce also snuck in the golf tournament. Obviously, we were masked up and gloved up, as Julie's showing off there. But this event is one of the few golf events that I do because it's the Chamber of Commerce. And I literally know everybody. And we have a fun tent there where people can come and get a drink or a bite to eat at the turn. This is kind of fun. The main polar bear plunge was canceled in 2021 due to COVID. But Eddie, the same guy who helped me donate meals for the flag event, we came up with this idea of doing a socially distant dunk tank, and we raised $35,000 for Maryland Special Olympics in just 10 days. From the time he came up with the idea to the day we were getting dunked, it was just 10 days of time, and we raised 35 grand for the Special Olympics. So I want to
up, Matt?
I'm starting to go numb. Let's work at calls, and I think we've raised almost $25,000. So
Come on now.
I'll be ready for a beverage.
So it was about 19 degrees that day as we were getting dunked, and I thawed out about 2 days later. So the third and final contest, 2 winners. Who on this Zoom has the coldest temperature right now? Who on this Zoom has the hottest temperature right now? Please post in Fahrenheit. Got a 79, 74, 32. All right, I'll come back and check those. Last couple things on the business side. My business community family and I are real tight. As I mentioned, I like to walk into stores and like say hi to everybody, make sure everybody's having a good day. I saw a really awesome sign at a local coffee shop the other day that said small coffee, $5. Small coffee, please, $3. Hey, how are you? I'd like a small coffee, please, $2. It's a great reminder to all of us. We need to be ambassadors of kindness in each of our communities. That's the only reason any of us have a job, is because of the community we live in, and that we have the awesome ability to sell people homes in those communities. So lately, my business has done a big emphasis on shop local. So everything we did this fall, every post we had emphasized like buying gift cards from local businesses, or doing a pop by and doing a social media posts and highlighting those owners. Well, just last week, a couple of the businesses kind of came back and said thanks to us, which is cool. Dawson's Liquors, which is like a liquor store that's literally been around since 1944 and is awesome, little humongous store here in Starner Park. They invited me to be in their television commercial, which was kind of cool. And Big Bean, we started doing Zoom coffee tastings, where we would do tasting kits and we'd ship those out to SOI people. And then we started doing Zoom tasting parties. Well, it since took off, and they're creating an industry at this business where they're now partnering up with the Chesapeake Roasting Company, and they're going to start doing home Zoom coffee tastings every week for profit. And then once the pandemic's over, they're going to start doing them in person. So it's kind of cool how an idea that we had for our SOI has now grown and become something that is even bigger. Just next week, we'll be donating blood, like I mentioned. And then last, but certainly not least, sometimes the community you built to support is there to support you. As I mentioned earlier, I have 3 children, 2 boys, Luke 7, Cooper 2, and Ellie, who will be a forever 2-month-old. And before I knew anything about any of this stuff, I had always thought myself of being a charitable person, someone to like dive in and help out when people were in need. But I had no idea how much more of an impact I could be making after tragedy hit. And my wife and I made the decision to take our worst possible, worst case scenario, if you will, and turn it into something good. So our whole idea is random acts of kindness. The Forelli Foundation was created by my wife and I at first because our community had an outpouring of over $32,000 overnight in a campaign online to raise money for the labyrinth that was for my grandma and grandpa in their memory. We needed $5,000 to finish that in their memory. And then when Ellie passed away, everyone reached out saying, how can we help? How can we help? And I said to my wife, I said, we got to say something. So I said, hey, you know what? We'd love to raise enough money to be able to finish this labyrinth. Well, we woke up the next day and there's, like I said, $30-some thousand in there. I said, Ashley, I believe we found our calling beyond what we thought we were going to be doing. So we made that labyrinth. We made a children's garden. We started a full-fledged foundation that just went over $100,000 donated to the hospital in just over 4 years. And we've taken over their pediatric unit, as you'll see in the lower left-hand corner, donating toys and gifts and hope totes, which are basically like for any parent out there that remembers their go bag in labor and delivery that had all the stuff they needed for their stay while they're giving birth to said child. The hope tote is for all the parents that show up to the pediatric ER unexpectedly. So they're wearing work clothes, they're wearing gym clothes, they don't have any toiletries or blankets or things to take care of their other children. We've stuffed these totes with all these different things and supplied the pediatric unit to be able to give every possible comfort to people in situations, hopefully much less worse than ours. But we couldn't be more blessed of our community. And in the bottom is our last cornhole tournament we hosted prior to COVID. And we raised over $20,000 playing cornhole. And I can't wait to do that again because it'll be fun to see all my friends. But I was honored last year at the 121 event. Our foundation was honored as the best of charitable involvement winner. So I wanted to mention that because I wasn't there last year. I was planning on going this year and saying thanks, but this is the closest thing we can do right now. So thank you to Century 21 for that honor. So if you'd like to be added to our sphere of influence, there's our handles at the Matt Weibel Team for Facebook and Instagram. You can YouTube us, the Matt Weibel Team of Century 21 New Millennium. If you want to email us and we can be added to the e-newsletter, or if you want anything from today's presentation, happy to share. And obviously, if you need a great agent or a great team to help your clients if they're relocating here to Maryland, we are happy to help and we love referrals. And thank you for attending. I'm going to catch up on questions here in the chat, but I do have a few frequently asked questions that I thought of. So Matt, I don't work where I grew up. How can I build a sphere of influence like yours? That is obviously a steeper hill to climb, but it is not impossible. I have a teammate who is crushing it. She is French. She's from France. That is very far place from Zorn Park, Maryland. Yet she's built her SOI by, before COVID, driving Uber, by meeting every single French business owner in the area, and being very, very active on social media and in creating friendships of people. And her business, she knows it, but she doesn't know just how much, is about to explode as all of her friends enter the age of first-time buyers. And it's kind of the same path that I went on. Matt, I don't have the marketing budget that you do. How in the heck can I replicate all of this stuff? It looks really expensive. It is. And trust me, I didn't do this in year 1 or year 5. This is what we can do now as a team. And I look as the team leader to give opportunities and events for my teammates to invite their top core SOI at a lesser rate so that they can show off the team and our brand to each of their clients and grow our community collectively even bigger. Well, guess what? You don't need to rent out an entire museum to have the same impact. You know what? Get a membership at your local aquarium or zoo or fun park and invite your top SOI person. Spend time. Everyone in this business is so quick to like, and I'm guilty of this too, go buy a $50 or $100 bottle of champagne. Congrats. Pop. They pop it that night. They drink the champagne. Who sold me my house 3 years ago? I forget. That's the worst. Use that same $100 more creatively and think about it that way. So whatever your gift budget is, think about some way to do a bounce back. Think about a way to check in with people, pop by, something along those lines. But you can create a market budget on just about anything if you put money aside from every paycheck for marketing. Matt, this looks like it takes time and I need to make money now. What should I do? Honestly, if you don't have a book of business or an SOI that's generating business for you, look at options within your brokerage to get those crumbs I mentioned. Crank out rentals. Nobody wants them. Go do them. Make $500, $600 a deal and use that money to pay your bills. And then when you sell something, which you will, use that money to start doing marketing efforts. It's one of those things where leads come from anywhere you want them to be. And you can be a guerrilla marketer without spending a dime. If you do have to spend money, do it wisely and do it creatively and don't let your money go to waste. But that is the official end of my presentation. I went a little over, I apologize. But
Matt, just thank you so much for your time and such fantastic information that you shared with the group today. I'm sure that you have given so many great ideas for them to take and start incorporating into their business. If you wouldn't mind over in the chat box, just sharing with them again that email address to request those SOI prompts, I think that would be really helpful. And any other questions, you're going to have that email address, everybody. You can feel free to reach out to Matt directly. And please don't forget to join us for tomorrow's session. Our featured speaker, the best-selling author and internationally acclaimed speaker, Andrew Davis. And that's going to be from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, everybody, have a great afternoon. And again, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thanks, everybody. I'll reach out to the winners. Lisa, make sure you send me the chat so I can catch up on it.
Yes, I have requested that from operations. So we will definitely get that over to you.